Okay, ready? All right. Okay, we'll start the meeting for the Olivet Planning Community Design Commission for March, what is today's, March 17th to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Rob Jurgel,
Present.
Carol Wagner,
Absent.
Jody Rich, present. Richard Brophy. I'm sorry, is he here? I couldn't hear.
Said present, yes.
Thank
Present.
you. Brian Lewis,
Present.
Dan Rosenberg,
Present.
and Tim Spiegelglass.
Present.
Let it also be known that City Council Liaison, Missy Waldman is in attendance, as well as Carlos Trejo, the Olivet Director of Planning Community Development Department, Dawn Doty, Senior Planner, and Bridget Waters, Administrative Assistant. And I believe, Carlos, do we have anybody else? Is Barb online?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, well, thanks everybody for being in attendance and happy St. Patrick's Day. So for all those who aren't wearing green, shame on you. Pardon? Thank you. Thank you very much. Exactly. Okay. Okay, we're going to first talk about kind of the commission procedures. And wanted to let everybody know that we do hold public comments at the very beginning. These are for comments that are not related to anything that's on the agenda item. We do ask you, if you do have a comment that's related to an agenda item, that you wait until that agenda item is brought up. When the agenda items are brought up, we go through a report by staff who'll go through the petition. And then there'll be some discussion among members of the commission here. And then at that time, we'll probably bring on the petitioner, unless it's an item that's in consent business. And then only if we have some issues or concerns would we bring on the petitioner at that point in time. And then we'll also ask for public comments related to that item as well. We are trying to make things move a little faster if we can, because like for today, we have a very full agenda item. So we do ask anybody who's giving a public comment to make sure they state their name and address for the record, as well as limit their time to no more than 3 minutes to be respectful of everyone's time, and also to make sure we get everybody's opinions and comments heard. And if somebody's online has a comment, we do ask you to raise your hand. That should be down below on one of the icons at the very bottom. So please do that. I do have, Carlos, we'll go ahead and ask for public comments, but while we're waiting for that, I do have something that I wanted to kind of bring up, and it's something that Carol and I were discussing, and I just asked her, to jot this stuff down, and she asked me to read it to everybody here. Okay. Carlos, can you just first ask for public comments?
Sure. If there are any public comments, if you can click the hand button located at the lower portion of the Zoom window in there, and we'll transfer you over. If you are again speaking on an agenda item, we'll have an opportunity for public comments at that point. And Chairman, right now, I recognize everybody that is on there associated with an agenda item.
Okay,
But
good.
if I'm wrong, again, just show your hand.
Well, I did want to get Carol's comment in because I thought it was very, very good. And so it was kind of a good reminder for everybody here, as well as everybody out in the audience, the petitioners and commentators. And it's our job as the Planning Commission to represent the community's interests. To do that, we must treat each petitioner the same. We do not have the luxury to assume that any petitioner can exercise their own judgment in a way that is better than the commission's collective opinion. Each petitioner that comes before us has clients that need to move forward, has investors, or has rising price issues, etc. For any developer to tell the commission to trust them, it's just not possible for us to do that. And it's our job kind of to verify that everything's being done. She goes on and says, we make every effort to deal with the petition quickly. Sometimes that's just not possible. If we need the time, the ordinance gives us 120 days. If any petitioner has made comments to clients or investors that exceed the maximum time that were allowed by law, then unfortunately, that's their problem, not ours. It is our job to treat each petitioner fairly, which means they each deserve our respect as well. I do want to also just kind of piggyback on that too, and just to kind of remind everybody, we are all volunteers. We are not intimately familiar with your projects as much as you guys are, so we do ask you guys to try to bring us up to speed. We might have comments or things like that that might be shown in the plans, but if you could just point that out to us, that would be great. If there are some things too that you guys have made, have thought about that and decided to do something different, let us know. It's very helpful to us. And it's a tough position, for us to be in these roles. I mean, we all have our own stresses and time and things like that. And some reasons, some nights or whatever, I don't know why we all volunteer, but we do it. And we try to do it fairly as much as we can. So we just ask to be patient with us, and we'll be patient with you, and we'll try to expedite things as fast as we can and move things. But sometimes if there's something new, something different in the city that we're not familiar with, sometimes we do have to pump the brakes a little bit just to make sure that we fully understand the projects and make sure it's a good fit for the community. So thank you. That's kind of some of the comments that I had. And if anybody else had any other things that they wanted to piggyback, but Carol's the one that kind of got the ball rolling on that. And I think she did a pretty good job of kind of going through some of those important issues. So right now, to kind of speed things along, we are going to jump and skip old business, and we're going to move to consent business. We're going to bring each item up individually, but if we don't have a need to bring on the petitioner, we're not, let's not do that to save the time and kind of move things along. We'll probably vote for each one individually, just, to make sure. We're going to discuss that. Maybe we can group these together in the future, but for now, we're going to do it, that way. Carlos?
All right. Chairman, you have 5 new homes on the consent business agenda, and I am asking to add a 6th item, 9327th Kenneth Place, as we did receive revisions earlier this week that incorporated, that addressed the one staff comment that we had regarding the use of masonry in there. So I would ask the commission to consider 10 Forsythia Lane, 511 Long Acres Drive, which is in the Verde Lane subdivision, 20 Crosswinds Drive, which is in the Crosswinds subdivision, 901 Floridale Drive, which is Oak Estates number 3 subdivision, 9625 and 9627th Kenneth Place, which is part of an old subdivision in there, located just east of Dolores, which is off of the south side of Olive Boulevard in there. Be glad to answer any specific questions. We do have representatives here for those agenda items. Staff has reviewed them in accordance with our design guidelines and find that they have fulfilled and met all the recommendations incorporated in those guidelines. They're compliant with the city's zoning standards and compliant with the city's concept stormwater management standards. Outside of that, I'd be glad to answer any specific questions.
Very good. Anybody on the commission have any questions for Carlos? At this time, does anybody see a need to bring on the petitioner? Carlos, will you just check if we have any public comments related to this?
Correct. At this point, I just see all the petitioners, but if there's anybody that would like to speak regarding the 6 noted homes, 10 Forsythia Lane, 511 Long Acres Drive, 20 Crosswinds Drive, 901 Floridale Drive, 9625 Kenneth Place, and 9627 Kenneth Place, show your hand.
Wait a little bit, just
9327. Yes, Chairman, I see none.
Okay, do I hear a motion? You have to at this point in time.
I'll move to approve the petition for site plan, community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 901 Floridale Drive as presented in the memorandum, excuse me, from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated March 17th, 2022, subject to staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
And seconded. Carlos, will you please call the vote?
Mr. Spiegelglass,
Approve.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approve.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approve.
Commissioner Rofi,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Commissioner Jurgel. Chairman.
Approved.
And the motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Six, sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
May I just?
Absolutely.
I'll move to approve the petition for community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 10 Forsythia Lane, as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated March 17th, 2022, subject to staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded. Carlos, please call the vote.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approve.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Brophy, Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Chairman Jurgel.
Approved.
The motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
Move on to the next one.
I move to approve the petition for community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 511 Long Acre, as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated March 17th, 2022, subject to staff conditions noted therein.
Motion's made. Anybody seconded?
Second.
And seconded. Carlos.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Brophy,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Chairman Jurgel.
Approved.
Motion passes unanimously.
I'll move to approve the petition for site plan, community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 9325 Plymouth Place as presented in the Department of Planning and Community Development dated 17th, 2022, subject to staff conditions noted there.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second? Second. And seconded. Carlos.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
sorry, Commissioner Brophy,
Approved.
Chairman Jurgel.
Approved.
Motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
I'll move to approve the petition for site plan, community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 9327 Kent Place as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated March 17th, 2022, subject to staff conditions noted there.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded. Carlos.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Brophy,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Chairman Jurgel.
Approved.
The motion passes unanimously.
Is there another one?
There is another one.
I have one more.
What's the last one?
20 Crossroads.
Oh, yeah. I'll move to approve the petition for site plan, community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 20 Crossroad Drive as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Development dated March 17th, 2022. subject to staff conditions.
Motion's been made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded. Carlos.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Brophy,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Chairman Jurgel.
Approved.
Motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
Okay, good, good. Okay, that completes consent business. Is that correct, Carlos?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, so right now, if you guys don't mind, we're going to move on to new business just to keep kind of going through some of the residential items. And we're going to move on to item A, which is 9600 Ashmont Drive. Carlos?
All right, Chairman, bear with me 1 second. Chairman, we received a petition for the construction of a new single-family home at 96 Ashmont Drive, part of the Oak Estates subdivision. It is a corner lot. It is a legal lot of record. However, it does not meet the minimum dimensional requirements of the SR district. Thus, therefore, it is subject to site plan review and approval, in addition to the standard community design review and the concept stormwater management plan review. The site plan review takes a look at what are impacts, given the lot's dimensions, what are impacts within the lot itself being developed, and what are the impacts to surrounding neighbors, given some of the deficiencies in the lot widths and depths and areas in there. In this case, This lot has a shallow rear yard, which is typically 150 feet in depth. Now, on a corner lot, the front yard is always the street side. In this case, on a corner, you have two street sides in there. So by ordinance, the street side with the least dimension becomes the true front, and the opposite side becomes the rear. So in this case, the true front of the lot faces east, and the rear is on the west end of the property. The north end of the property still consists of a front yard, and the south end of the property consists of the side yard. So when you go through those calculations, the rear yard is 20% of the lot depth. And again, we have a deficiency in the lot depth, but you can see that it's been illustrated in there as, I believe it's 26.5. The side yard is 12% of the lot width, and that's going to be measured from north to south. In the case of this petition, the home itself, which I find complies with the residential redevelopment and design guidelines, it's a very attractive home that's been proposed in here, and does a good job addressing the corner components of the yard. So you actually have two fronts. However, the way it's designed, the front is facing north, and the backyard is facing south. And the issue on staff's concern, based on the site plan review, becomes, all of a sudden, that side yard becomes a very shallow backyard, because the true rear is located here on the western side. So we've discussed that with the petitioner. They're going to talk about it. And here's a proposed new home. And here again, the west side being the rear yard, and then the south side being the side yard. But the way the house is designed, again, and where your front door doesn't dictate what the zoning criteria would be, their side yard still is going to be their backyard in there. And the backyard is roughly a little over 16 feet in depth. So the petitioner is going to talk about that. We've had a discussion in there. They provided a really nice cross section for that site, and you'll see it here, and I'll get it in the PDF because it shows a little bit better. Again, the concern that's noted by staff, and it's the reason that it's not as a consent item, is strictly because of the site plan review process and the concern of the backyard being, the side yard being used as the backyard. I hate to use the term rear because zoning definitions are defining the rear yard on the western side in there. A corner lot, regardless of where that door, the front door is located or where the garage door is located, doesn't dictate how the zoning application is going to be applied. Again, it's based on which side has the least amount of frontage in there. So that is the reason that this item is a new business item and not as a consent item. And again, we've reviewed it in terms of the community design in there. It's met and checks off on all 7 design principles and its utilization, and then also in concept stormwater water management. It has a on-site detention, and that's located at the southwest corner of the property, and it is sized to accommodate the standards under Chapter 422. So be glad to answer any questions. The petitioners here in there. We've had a discussion about that, the setback, and they want to kind of talk about what their design approach is on that.
Okay. Is anybody on the commission? Go ahead.
I guess, Carlos, just to clarify, your concern is not that it's aesthetically a problem, that the neighbors have a problem, or there's any other issue, more just that it doesn't comply with the normal in that regard. Is that a fair assessment?
No, because this has to go through site plan review, we're supposed to look at, are there any adverse impacts that could happen both within the lot, given some of these deficiencies, and outside of the lot. The concern here is because of those deficiencies, this backyard is they're using the side yard as their backyard, and that's pretty shallow. in terms of its depth. That's only 16 feet. A typical backyard or a rear yard should be no less than 20 feet by code. And they're applying that, but they're applying that on the western side of the lot. That's what the code dictates has to be applied. So it kind of comes down to, just the design approach of, the house is using the side yard as the backyard in there, and is 16 feet enough for a backyard? Like,
Well, and I guess maybe I'm missing it, but I understand it's not to the code, why it's coming in front of us versus consent, but I guess other than not following that code, is it a problem?
and that is the question. That is what the site plan review process is for, because it meets all the dimensional criteria in terms of its setback height and such. The question here really is, should that side yard, should the defined side yard be utilized as that backyard? And it is a legitimate question to bring up to the commission for design review under the site plan review process.
Carlos, is the existing house, how is that set?
The existing house is set up right here.
And that's the back.
That's the
still
backyard.
back.
Mhm.
The rest of the houses on that street lineup. They all look like they're facing either east or west besides that house.
That's correct.
Any other questions or comments at this time for Carlos?
If I may, one other question.
Yeah.
Carlos, if we're okay with this, let's just assume that for a moment. Does that set a precedent where other houses would be able to orient themselves 90 degrees from the way they should be? Or is this a one-off due to the nature of this lot? in the
It's
corner?
somewhat unique to the individual lot itself. I mean, it is possible that a mirror image can be applied to the property on the west on here. That one just recently got developed within the past 5 years, I think.
Yeah, I guess maybe I should have articulated that differently. Does this start the trend of us not respecting what is definitionally the front yard and the backyard? And is it going to cause problems for us in the future because we have a code set up with, presumably the backyard setback is more than the side yard setback because we want to have houses that have a nice backyard. And if we start to ignore this requirement, would it give way to other folks using the same approach to minimize their backyard and maximize their side yard if they wanted to?
It has a potential to set up a precedent. I know if I was coming with a home under a similar situation and was aware of an approval, a recent approval, I would point to that and
Right.
And the issue on a staff level, we would be looking at, well, what were the unique circumstances that it was applicable to this lot, but not necessarily this lot. And I think that's what we want to understand from the petitioner side. What are the design, what in the design is necessitating either that the house face north to south in there or that shallow depth.
One last question. Is there anything in the code that defines the front yard and rear yard? As in, like, we've already talked about the fact that the front door doesn't define that, but like location of deck or garage entry, or is there anything else that defines that? Or do we just have these terms kind of floating in the code?
The code will define, of course, the front yard any street side. When you have a corner lot, the code recognizes it and says that the rear yard that's going to be applied is the street side with the smallest width, the least width. And in this case, it is the east side. So by zoning, I'm calling the west side the rear yard. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the backyard, the side yard, or so it is the defined rear yard with the south property line being the defined side yard. And we've had situations where homes had a similar, issue, had a similar application in the corner lot and did design a house to face, with the rear exit door or backyard into that side yard, but not to a depth of this type.
They didn't butt it right up against the setback. in other words.
Correct.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, well, I'm definitely interested to see why they chose that particular orientation. So if we can bring on the petitioner, that'd be great.
So I'll bring you. I'll hear you state your name and address.
And as a reminder, guys, before you speak, if you could state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Good evening. I'm Matt Poston with THD Design Group. I'm here representing Mr. Ryan Weber from Weber Enterprises, the home builder for this piece of property. Our address is 148 Chesterfield Industrial Boulevard, Suite E. Our phone number is 636-294-2973.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Weber. This is my first home to build in Olivet. And I came to let Matt help me out and make a face with all the names, with all the people. So
Very good. Well, we're glad you're here.
nice to meet you.
All right, so to the setback on would be the south side of the property. Carlos has brought up the shortness of this setback, which is probably less than what we would normally have for most rear yards. I would like to note that if you look in a lot of subdivisions that are done these days, most often than not, your corner lots are deficient in some way on a rear yard and generally have at least one large side yard as you come around the corner with your dual setbacks. With that in mind, we recognized in the planning of the roof heights for the proximity of the house to the adjacent property to keep eaves at a similar level to the top of the other house to help reduce the massing questions that may arise for that piece of property. We discussed possibly adding like a small awning over the deck landing there that comes down to the patio. The patio is raised. It's about 2.5 foot tall retaining wall. I wanted to demonstrate that because it's looking just at the plan. It kind of seems bulky because it's all dark. I didn't want somebody to think we were having a 12-foot tall wall back along that side. As Carlos said, this is a situation that's unique to this lot. It's probably not unique to only this lot. I'm sure there are a couple other lots in Olivet that you would run into the situation when you have corner lots in this manner. With that being said, I don't think a precedent is set for any lot that's a corner lot. I think, as Carlos mentioned, it's staff's responsibility to look at each one individually and determine any unique characteristics for that property that would justify that kind of situation. In this, we feel that the house is set for what market demand is calling for. What we're seeing is 3-car side entry garages are really what's driving a lot right now. That's what he's trying to do, is to get that 3-car on here. With the shape of the lot and the double setbacks, you can't reverse this house or flip it to be a side entry in any way. There's not enough room on that side to get a car in or to back out from the driveway at a minimum 25-foot turnaround pad.
So if you rotated it.
Yeah, so if we were to try and rotate it to where the garage would face to the south, there isn't enough room to slide the house further enough north to be able to get a driveway in there with the 25-foot turnaround pad that is required to actually make a turning movement coming out of a garage.
Just out of curiosity, if you rotated it to the right and then flipped it north to south so that the garage would be on the north side of the property, would that work?
It's still, at that point, your setbacks are not going to allow. If you look at the overall
The
width,
house width 70 feet as compared to.
I want to say it didn't fit in there like that. Is that front yard 40?
In initial rendering that we did have it flip oriented that way and we couldn't make it fit. We wound up talking with Carlos and we came with definitions of the yards and we tried to make it work the best we could. It's weird to say it again.
Yeah, I think too, if you were flip it the way you're speaking of, then where your garage is going to be, your driveway is going to be entering the street is right there at the rounding versus
Good point.
down away from the intersection.
That makes sense. too.
I think- I think the concern on the precedent, I had the same issue, but I think the fact that the side yard is over 20, it's It'd be one thing if we were approving something where the backyard was under 20 and there's no side yard greater than 20. It kind of gives a little bit of, that's why we're doing it this way. It's using the side yard as the backyard because it's so much bigger. But it kind of creates a, there are exceptions. It's corner lot, it's different. So it worries me less. I mean, it's a valid point, I think.
One quick question, and you may have said this already, I apologize if I missed it, but why not just shift the whole house north by like 5 feet to get your backyard?
But the house right now currently sits about half a foot inside the 40-foot setback along the north side of the property. So there's only about half a foot to move the house
I
north.
see.
The only way to move it forward is to lose the 3-car garage.
Yes.
And that's the issue is,
We'd be approving it that way.
And he's done a really good job with the architect. Like Carlos said, the street sides really do display well. They match all the criteria with all the extra brick and the wraparound and stuff that, really has kind of become the stamp, in my opinion, here, all of that. I've done numerous houses here, and it's one of my favorite aspects, actually.
I'm gonna ask one other question, or a comment, actually. The left side elevation that you guys have, which is the side with the garages. I'm mostly interested in how the house will look from both sides, since it's a corner lot, so the streetscape on both sides.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a very clear front of the house, and the left side elevation is very clear to the side of the house, it's fine. I agree, it's nice that there's brick and not just a huge swath of vinyl siding. My one question is whether you guys would consider putting windows in the kitchen. Because right now, there seems to be this huge swath of brick on the left side of the door. If you're looking at the left side elevation, not the garage side, but the other side, I think that's where the kitchen is. Throw some windows or something in there to break up that massive brick wall.
I don't have it drawn. This cross section, he's looking at it. Right there.
it's possible. I need to look at the floor plan to see what we have going on right there.
The range is on that wall, so I understand,
Right.
about the range,
Yeah,
but it looks like there's plenty of room on the sides to throw a window somewhere. I think that would go a long way to breaking that mass up, because, and if it were a backyard, that'd be one thing, but considering this situation, it might be nice to break that up.
A little bit more like the front of the house.
Sure, I understand. Yeah, we can look at that and see how that affects our floor plan and cabinet layouts and things. Yeah. Sure. How does everybody feel about the 3-car garage being the driving force for putting it back up?
So if it was a 2-car garage, how much space would that actually get us for the side yard?
12 feet. Right, 12 feet.
Right at 11 foot 4 inches is what the difference between an extra car with the 1 foot 4 inch bump out would be to the outside of that bay. That is, if you push it all the way up to the setback again, you would then definitely have much larger, because of the way a house is oriented, is being considered the rear yard. But then you're doubling up since you've already got a massive side yard. That's kind of the approach we had was, like you'd said, the side yard, the definition of the side yard that's being seen as the rear, the side yard itself by code, or by rear yard by code, is much larger and still provides a very usable area that we fenced and everything else.
But you don't have an exit out to that, do you?
After that's what the back, you can come out along the back door and right to it.
And then have to walk all the way around.
Well, I mean, you gotta walk half the back of the
Yeah,
house.
yeah, I get it. I don't know how strongly I feel about it, but I'm just making sure that everybody, thinks about it.
It's good that they've fit it within the setbacks.
Mhm.
A difficult challenge to get to front yard. 40-foot setback. I understand wanting to have big cars.
It's a 5-bedroom house.
I get it, yeah.
You have cars parked in the streets. And, yeah.
My personal view is, these corner lots are just such a weird thing.
The corner lots in the area, I'm not sure, but there are 2 and 3 car garages all throughout.
The corner one directly to our west, I believe, is a 2-car, if I'm not mistaken. That was built, Carlos should say 5 or 6 years ago.
Correct.
That's also a market from,
Say that again?
that's also at a market from 5 years ago.
Any other questions for discussion? Carlos, do we have any public comments?
Yes, I believe we have the neighboring property.
Good.
Mr. Stelzer, I'm going to transfer you over as a panelist, and you should be able to address the commission. If you can first state your name and address, and then also if you can have your video available, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Okay, can you hear me? And I'm going to start video.
We can hear you, and
Okay.
your video is on, sir.
Okay, sorry about that. This is my first time connecting into your meeting here. My name is Jim Stelzer. I live at 659 Ashmont Drive. I've been a resident of Olivet for since 1985. We lived here. We've watched the neighborhood in Oak Estates transition from generally ranch homes to 2-story homes. And I think overall the community is better off for that. I think we've seen some excellent houses being delivered to the neighborhood, and even the ones on our street here have all been of very good quality and very well designed and integrated to make a harmonious neighborhood. However, I have some problems with this house, in particular, not only because it's just directly next door. I've had a new house go in on the other side, which we had no problems with. They've met all the massing recommendations and setback requirements. This one, as you guys discussed, does not meet the setback requirements. It's clearly has that not only the patio and the stairwell within the side yard setback boundaries, but as you can see in this section BB diagram, the builder even labels that as a rear property line. And I guess, you could talk all you want about your regulations and the requirements, by code, but the reality is the people are going to be coming out of the back door here. That's where the barbecue is. That's where they're going to be coming in and out of. That's where the activity is going to be. And I think the setback requirements label a rear yard setback because that's primarily where there's space to have those type of activities. And this is just too grossly encroaching on our property. I'm not sure that the property itself meets a proportionality requirement. I thought there was supposed to be like a 25% limit on the ground plan versus the overall property. I'm not sure they meet that, but I'd have to go back and check my numbers on that. And then finally, if you look at the rear profile view, I know you've looked at the side facing the 2 sides facing the streets on the east side and the north side. But if you look at that rear property view on the south side, which is what's facing me, I would be looking at basically a 3-story flat wall face pointed right at me, with the 3rd story basically hovering over everything we're doing in our backyard. And I think that's just a little too much. That's encroaching way too much on us. like I said, when we first moved into the neighborhood and bought this property, we had ranch homes. There was nobody towering over anyone. And I'm okay with having a 2-story home. But really what I'd be looking at is a 3-story wall. I'd be seeing the basement wall, the 1st-story wall, and the 2nd-story wall, all hovering over my ranch home. So that's about all I want to add here. I think Carlos has covered the basic problems with the property, but I just want to double down and tell you that it's very disappointing from my point of view, my wife and our point of view.
Thank you for your comments. Carlos, now, you was mentioning that it encroached on the setbacks. I don't believe so. Is that correct?
Not on the setbacks, I think referring to the exit door, because it is at a higher elevation.
then
And
the
they
porch.
are required by code, a minimal 36-inch exit, and you're not penalized for that exit because it's required for that code and along the setback area. And then the flat work is permitted to be in the side yards, even though it is elevated.
I just wanted to clarify. that
Yes. Mhm.
Before we went on. And so Jim, sorry, I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that as well. Because right now, the way the house sits, it sits within the setbacks. Oh, I
It's-
understand your concern. So thank you very much for your comments, and we'll probably have some more discussion amongst the commission.
Okay.
So- Thank you. So, obviously, guys, you know, I think there's people on the commission that also think it's pretty shallow, it's pretty tight. Guys feel about it, the rest, but is there anything you guys could do to
So
consider?
we were just spitballing here. We'd have to take a look at the layout in the lower level. But I was asking Mr. Weber, could we move that access to the west, like the southwest corner of the house? Therefore, what Mr. Stelzer is concerned about being where they come out and immediately have their patio and parties and barbecues, et cetera. If that was around towards what the setback zoning dictates as the rear yard, you know, that would take away some of that feeling of people being right on top of them. The size of the house and the height and everything, as Carlos mentioned, meet the massing size requirements. It doesn't exceed code in that manner. We have had discussions about possibly, as I said before, over what we do now, if we move that patio around, but over where that exit was at, we could put another small awning roof to kind of break up that wall, or possibly even run a small overhang from each side of the 2 lower eaves across the back underneath the windows in the rear of the home to help break up that large portion of wall in the rear. As far as getting the house further away, that's kind of the sticking point. There is.
I don't see really a good place for you guys to put that exit door on the southwest corner.
We'd have to relocate the stormwater system, which would not be a problem.
No, but it looks like the master bedroom's right in this.
Well, that's what he's saying. That's what he wanted to look at possibly flipping
Okay.
to where the master bedroom is then behind the
Okay.
garage. Line for that door to be reoriented.
And then maybe there's another possibility too, is, I mean, to seek a variance, you know, for the front yard setback. Just a thought.
Yeah, if we come
Brainstorm.
forward 4 feet, then
5
we a small variance in the front yard, it meets the 20 feet in the back, right?
I know Carlos doesn't like to do that.
Yeah,
Well-
it's a self-imposed issue. And I understand, again, I really like this house. It's a good design, but it's not a design for this lot in there. And the primary issue is the 3-car garage, honestly, because that's taking 10 feet, you know, that's shifting that whole house 10 feet. It's a good looking
So-
house. So the key would be is, again, the reason we go through the site plan review process, it's not necessarily that there are code issues, is that we have to be cognizant because of the conditions of this lot, that there could be adverse impacts on not just the site itself, but on the neighbors. And I think that's what Mr. Stelzer is kind of referring to, of having that back door proximity so close to to his back door. And it's a valid concern. So the goal then becomes is how do you mitigate that? What are things that we, that we can look if it is possible to shift that door further west? Because if you look, at these and that patio is looking right over his patio. And if you look at the cross section, I mean, they're going to be 10 feet over looking down in, and I can understand that concern.
not
If you
from the
had the
patio.
20 feet, it could be a little bit different, but it's still there. So the key would be, if it is shifted westward, does that kind of mitigate? That's the goal of the site plan review process. You start to mitigate some of the issues there. Are there other things or mechanisms like screens to help facilitate that? In there, to become a little bit more permanent in there.
Just maybe a point of clarification. You were talking about moving the deck. Was that to move it to the west side of the house?
Yeah,
Totally to the west side?
yeah, to get that, what Mr. Stelter was concerned about was
Right.
when they're outside having the barbecue, them being
Got
what
it,
he's
yeah.
considered right on top of it.
Yeah.
He does live in a subdivision. I live in one as well. I have neighbors, so I'm gonna see him. I can understand him not wanting somebody out there like having noise. I get his concern.
That also makes the west side more of the backyard it's
It-
intended to be.
That was what I was talking with Mr. Weber about. Now, like I said, I can't sit here and say we can do that right now.
Right.
But that's an option. I also asked Mr. Weber if we were to be able to keep that location, what if Mr. Stelter also mentioned that he didn't want to stare at a concrete wall and then siding all the way up above. Mr. Weber would be willing to tack siding along the foundation in that area to not be just all gray concrete wall that he's staring at. Along with, like I said, just an eave overhang coming underneath those windows in the rear, I think would not make that facade look so plain and
Right.
I like the idea of moving the deck to what's defined as the backyard. That changes the private space to a different area, which has more square footage. A little bit, and is more in line with the spirit of the code.
I do want to ask Carlos, you mentioned that the third car, based on the parameters of this lot, that the third car is not a viable house for this type of lot. Per Board of Adjustment, you have to have a what's the word I'm looking for? Hardship.
Correct.
To have a variance granted. Would that condition with the market demanding 3-car garage, would that be considered a hardship?
Again, it is a reasonable argument, but then it opens the board to being susceptible to all corner lots having an issue. Again, if the developer of this lot here would have been aware that could have petitioned for a variance, they may have gone for a 3-car garage as opposed to a 2-car garage. But I don't know, and what I do know is that when the next corner one comes in, they're going to be asking me, well, how did they do it? And it's a natural question to ask. I mean, there's nothing in there, and that's where a position I wouldn't want to put the board or the city in there or so.
I have a random idea could you take the garage and put it on the back of the house that it is right now?
South?
On the south side of it?
You run into, from an engineering standpoint, you don't want to have your garage on the north side of the property. Wind up with grading issues. You have to have your grade higher on the high side of the property. You either have to run foundation wall up higher, or you got to do a lot more excavation to get the water out and around it. It's generally a engineering practice to keep the garage on the high side of the property.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. What if you took the single garage and flipped it at a 90 and moved it in there? I've seen a lot of those going around on smaller lots. Obviously, that would be huge rework.
Saying turn that bay that's all the way to the north, turn it to face the north.
I think you're talking about an L shape, right?
Yeah.
Where you have one entrance here and two here. You'd have to lose some of your square footage in the house, but that would be.
Well, I mean, you could recapture it elsewhere. Yeah, they would be a huge redesign, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
that's
it's-
part of what you're, you know, looking to get this moved, and obviously we respect your comments earlier. We're looking to move forward with the project and not go through a significant redesign. Our hopes were that, you know, it would be recognized as being a corner lot. It is a unique situation. And we can understand the neighbors' concerns. You know, I don't know how long Mr. Stelter is planning on remaining in the home. I'm pretty sure 90% of that subdivision has been redeveloped. I'm sure he's going to be getting phone calls as well for redevelopment. Not that he's willing to sell his home.
Well, let's see what you guys can come back with. I think let's defer this. You know, now I think we've talked about it. I think you guys need to kind of go back and see what your options are. Unless you want to push it for a vote tonight.
For sure, but you have to. What's the time frame on reapplication for the property?
April 7th would be the next meeting that I'd have.
Which we would come to anyway with our revised ideas, right?
Right.
So what's?
What would it hurt?
We wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Because you'll be back next week. And we can vote on it.
We'll be back next
Yeah.
weekend.
That'd be great.
But it would be on April 7th.
April 7th. I should say next week.
Because it's have an extra week.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stelter. We appreciate your comments.
All right, thank you.
Learned on that one.
Yeah.
Bear with me.
Is that- yeah, that was nice. Oh, I got it. I got it. here. So as soon as Carlos has some time, we'll move on to 545 Long Acres Drive.
Chairman, this item is before you. It's this will be the fifth, I believe, home proposed, or excuse me, the fourth home proposed in the Birdie Lane subdivision. The address will be 545 Long Acres Drive. It is north of the detention area, so it's closer towards the cul-de-sac on the property grounds. It's a one-story home that is proposed, and for the most part, it complies with the guidelines under the Olivet Residential Redevelopment and Design Manual. The only issue here is that they're not using masonry for the development. Now, they are using hardy board, which has been identified on the elevation plans, and staff is just bringing that to the commission. You know, the only reason why we didn't place it on the consent agenda is for the commission to discuss the, you know, whether the alternative material is compatible or complementary with the use of brick. And again, within your report, you have the section regarding masonry use in there, and I wanted to make sure it's clear, because the guidelines do say the elevation should consist of no less than 50% brick, stone, and other similar masonry. Siding, including wood or aggregate substitutes such as hardy plank or restoration grade vinyl profiles, may be acceptable. They are using what they identified as cement board lap siding in there, which is a type of hardy plank, which again is which is identified as a may be acceptable. And that our role is to bring that to the commission's attention to make that decision and determination.
Anybody have any questions for Carlos? No, seeing none. Oh, go ahead. Ken. Sorry about that.
We've approved one other house in Birdie Lane, correct?
You've approved, I believe you've acted on 3, including one earlier today.
Okay, and did they both have masonry?
Yes,
On there?
all 3.
My personal feeling is I'm not opposed to it as long as it's a good solid material. It does add some variety. to the homes, that are being built. I don't know how the rest of you guys feel.
Feel like there should be some masonry on it.
You do?
I believe there should be some masonry on, somewhere on the house.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that, strictly a party siding house should not be.
Guys got any thoughts?
From a personal Brian perspective, it doesn't bother me much, but I think it's also comes down to what is the guidelines. The guidelines we're trying to set, we don't agree on the masonry, that's a different thing, change the guidelines, but recommendations, but it is the recommendation. The rest of the houses in the neighborhood, I mean, I know the two you mentioned, but broader for the neighborhood, mostly masonry.
Those outside the boundaries of the subdivision, yes, they usually all have some masonry along the front. There is one vinyl house, the old, what we kind of term the old caboose house. I believe that's all siding, the yellow house. I think it's still yellow.
Here is the petitioner online.
Okay,
I mean,
yes.
Unless there's any further discussion, I think we should bring the petitioner on.
Mr. Freeman, I'm going to promote you as panelist, and then if you want to identify who should be transferred over on your team, just let me know.
Yes, Carlos, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Hi, my name's Harry Freeman with Freeman Homes. My address is 950 Francis Place, Suite 107, 63105. Also, one of the people is the homeowner that is in the, I guess he's not a panelist yet, but just to go back to your comment about the brick, I totally understand that, but the customers really wanted a craftsman style house, and that's the reason we proposed that, and he is here to speak about it, and that's really where this all came from, because that's the style house they wanted to have.
And the customer's name, sir?
Tony Epps.
Mr. Epps, I'm going to transfer you over to panelists. Bear with me 1 second.
Okay,
Okay, Mr. Epps, if you can state your name and address. And then also if you can have your camera on. There you are, sir. You're still muted, though.
okay, can you hear me?
Sir.
Hi, all right, hello, my name's Tony Eastep, and it's my wife Becky.
Hi.
Harry is right, we really want a craftsman style house. We sat down with Harry and looked at the plans. We're very excited about that neighborhood and about Olivet. Two of my brothers lived in Olivet, one still does, one lived there for 25 years or more, and we love the neighborhood. And the house that you see in those plans is our dream home. This is something we've wanted to do for many years. I currently live at 4643 Lindell, but before that, I lived for many years in Frontenac, 541 Hickory Lane in Frontenac. And we had a house that's somewhat similar to this, but it was too big for us, and this one is just right. So we were captivated by the plans, by the neighborhood, and by the prospect of being your future neighbors. So I hope this plan, and let me just say that if my wife has some plans in her mind for landscaping that will probably dress up the area that you're looking at, that you might want to have something other than hiding. So anyway, that's all I really have to say, is that I think it's a great house, and I'm sure that if you let us put it there, you'll like it too.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. We're excited that you're considering all of that as well. So, Carlos, do we have any public comments related to this? And also, does anybody have any particular comments to the petitioner or to the
I would think that there's some way to include some stone in the. Something with those things.
Hello? Hello?
Hello,
Carlos?
it's Becky and Tony up in the corner.
Sorry. So what I was saying was, I think it would be nice if we had some kind of masonry to go by our city guidelines in some form and fashion. May not be 50%, but I think it's important to make an effort.
Let's see right now if we have any other public comments.
At this point, I don't see any. If there's anybody that'd like to speak in regards to the petition.
Yes, Harry Freeman again. Am I still on?
Yes, sir.
Carlos, I know you all would like to have some brick, and I know the homeowners would like to have a craftsman style. But the reason is if we added a brick wainscot below all the windows across the front, the reason why we didn't do that is because that still doesn't meet the requirement. I don't know if the board would be okay with that. The problem is by the time we added the 50% brick, it takes up majority of the whole front elevation. And that's totally, really not what the homeowners wanted. Would the board accept like a brick wainscot going across the front or any other suggestion like that? I think we would be open to some kind of conversation about that.
No,
I think that's a great idea. I mean, we're willing to work with you on that. The other idea would be either to put some, permanent planters there with stone around that, or I know you have a column there, you can do a stone wrap on the base of that. I think, I mean, speak for you, but I think we're looking for something. Throw us a bone, and I think we'll work with you. That's my perspective.
Okay, then I think I really need to have a conversation with the future homeowners and see what they think. Because I can't answer for them unless they would like to answer for that. And I don't know if you could preliminary approve without me giving you a drawing anyway.
If it was a simple thing, a wainscot across the front, I think we'd be fine, with that and work with staff on maybe any other details if there's any other issues with that. Carlos, would that be?
We're all staring at Carlos.
Yeah.
It's, we would be glad to work with the petitioner and the new homeowner if the commission agrees. I'd like to get a little bit more perspective of, what the extent of percentage you're looking for, or if there is a threshold that you're looking for in there. And this is
Well, I
where
mean,
because
that's where it gets, Tony, Carlos, that's where it's getting tricky. But if you look at the plan, and let's just all have a conversation now, if you put a wainscot, the wainscot would look best going to the bottom of the windows, going straight across and doing all the bump outs and wrapping it around. There's really no room. You can do the returns on the front porch. But I mean, if we raised it higher than that to get you a higher percentage, I think it would start making the elevation look a little off. But I mean, if you're highlighting what you're saying right there, going underneath, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And then probably on that elevation, you kind of raise it to the bottom of the window, just a little higher so it's consistent all the way across. I don't know. That would be, something. But I think Carlos is looking for the board to say, if you see what he has highlighted there, if that works, then I would go back to the future owners and say, hey, this is what we need to do.
I think I'm getting nods here that says, yes, that would be fine to bring it up to the bottom of the windows. But I think it's, I think the homeowner needs to ask if that could be acceptable with that.
Well, that's all going to be covered up. But then we have a minute.
Mr. Eastet, I'm not sure what your thoughts are on that?
Oh, are you waiting for us to speak?
We were, yes, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, this is our dream home. And Harry showed us this plan, and this is what we wanted. I really wanted a house with craftsman style. Brick is not a part of that. We've lived in a stone house before when we lived in Westchester, New York, when my son was a baby. And I really love this design. It's, to be honest, it's very expensive to build your own home. And putting something down at the bottom, that will probably be covered with the beautiful bushes I'm going to put there anyway. It's not really what I want.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, well, why don't we, an option is we could, call it to a vote and see if it's acceptable, passes without the brick. And if it's not, then maybe we could propose passing it with up to the windows, and then they can decide what they want to do. How's everybody feel about that?
Or is it worth having them back and talk and come back with ideas if there's anything that they digest a little bit? Both are good.
I feel badly that we're putting the homeowner on the spot. I think
Yeah.
maybe we wait until the next meeting, defer it.
What, here's,
Hey, Stone.
I'm gonna speak for the, I'm not speaking for the homeowners, but I'm speaking for the petitioner. If you're not going to approve it as a craftsman style without any brick, and if you're willing to approve it with the brick to underneath the windows, I'd prefer you to do that, and let's have the conversation to give them what the cost is going to be to do that, for them to make the determination. And if they don't want to do it, then they don't buy the house. But I mean, going redrawn and coming back to the ARB for another month was something I can do in 3 days to make the decision. I don't want to hold the lot off the market for another month.
We understand.
Did we limit it to brick or just any masonry? Because it could be stacked stone or something like that too, right?
Right.
You can make it stack stone or masonry. I get where you're all coming from. I'm just looking for a definitive direction instead of coming back and doing this again.
Carlos, who the actual petitioner is?
Freeman Homes.
Mr. Freeman. If I understand, Mr. Freeman, as the petitioner, you're asking us to consider the design that we have on the screen here with the masonry identified in yellow.
Or
Correct.
Stone, right, right. You're asking for us to move on that today.
Yes.
I'm comfortable doing that.
yes.
Are you, one last point of clarification from my perspective, are you willing to wrap the stone around the corner at least a little bit so that it doesn't just stop?
Well, here's the problem when you wrap the corner on the garage side there. If you look at it, you got the garage door right there on the 3-car side. And if you wrap it on the other side, there's not a break for it. I mean, I could wrap 2 feet to the side, but I mean, then it's going to like die in the middle of nowhere. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't know about the rest of the commission. I'm just expressing my personal opinion here, but I think any wrap is better than no wrap. Maybe I'm alone on that.
Yeah, because you kind of get that, what do they call it? The stage set effect when it just dies at the edge. If it wraps a little bit, gives it a little more 3-dimensional look. But yeah, even just
2 feet.
that's good. Yeah.
Okay. Do I hear a motion?
I'll move to approve the petition for community design and concept stormwater management plan review for a new single-family home at 545 Long Acres Lane as presented in the memorandum from the Department of Planning.
I don't want them to go.
March
I'm
17,
not waiting.
2022. Subject to the understanding that the plans will be amended to include a masonry or stone wrap coming to the bottom of the majority of the windows around the front and at least extending to a portion of the side of the front of the house on both the elevations of those. We'll just say the right and left elevations of the home, subject to any other staff conditions noted therein.
Oh,
I second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Carlos, you please call the vote.
All right, and that second was
Oh,
Mr. Spiegel. I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Spiegel,
Thank you.
okay. Yeah, sorry about that.
On the motion with the condition, additional condition. Mr. Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Approved.
Mr. Lewis,
Approved.
Mr. Brophy,
Approved.
Ms. Rich,
Approved.
and Chairman Dragao.
Approved.
And the motion passes unanimously, 6-0.
Thank you very much.
can I just, no, I just want to ask if Stone is Stone okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear.
Okay, good. So we'll move on to go back to old business. Carlos, we'll give you some time to kind of get things in order.
All right, Chairman, the next agenda item, back to new business, will be review of the Olivet City Center Townhouse Project that is located across the street here from the Olivet City Center Government Building. It's a redevelopment of the 2.82 acre site. This item has been formally introduced to the commission on January 6th, and then subsequently it has been on 3 previous commission meeting discussions as we've gone over a proposal to convert the existing 7-lot, the existing properties into a grouping of 5 buildings with 5 townhomes per unit. It's a total of 35 unit. We've gone through the designs, the engineering, and various changes on this development. At the last meeting, kind of focusing on what the 4 comments were from the commission. There was some concerns regarding the lighting and the lighting standards, and there was quite a bit of discussion in there in request to kind of address this through some additional renderings. And the developer did put 5 renderings together, trying to focus on some of the concerns that the commission had. The first rendering, which is in the center of your monitor, and there is to illustrate the back elevation of the units and the articulation that they were proposing for those units. I think there was some comments regarding to just how much articulation was going to be there with those decks and the overall height. Then there was regarding the how the light height and buildings would look from the adjacent properties to the west. That's the single family residential properties off of Indian Trails. And again, the upper 2 diagrams or renderings illustrate the views from the western side, and then they try to kind of tone that to look at a night view if possible. And then you have a new rendering on the lower left hand side illustrating the front, especially the main pedestrian entrance off of Dealman. Of course, there are 3 of those, but this is the one focal point area. The one to your lower right is reflective of the cover in there. It's been kind of been refined in there, but it's the same view that we've seen. So petitioner is here. Staff has gone through those revisions. You have my notes on the conditions or that would be necessary. All those are roughly minor items in there, and that is what should be submitted into the process. The commission's role, though, is to talk about the design overall and the objectives. And again, these renderings are intended to try to address the concerns about the facade, and then of course the light or night view from the adjacent properties on the west. Be glad to answer any specific questions. We have the petitioner and their architect is here.
Any questions for Carlos? Oh, I think that's good. Do we need to bring on the petitioner, or how's everybody feel about those renderings?
Well, Mr. Cohen, thank you for these. I think it looks really nice. I think this allayed some of the concerns I had, particularly about the way I can describe it is by showing the picture, this
South
angle. Yeah, south elevation. I think it looks really nice. I think the decks do a nice job of breaking up that facing, and the fact that the roofs are, have the hips where they do, makes it look nice. It looks great. So thanks for this.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
It looks great.
Mhm. Any public comments, Carlos?
Okay, if there's anybody that would like to speak in regards to this agenda item, if you can show your hand. Young Chairman, if anybody would like to speak in regards to this agenda item.
And Doug, did you want to say anything? I didn't mean to not invite you up.
Chairman, at this point, I see no one's raising their hands to comment.
Seeing no further discussion, do I hear a motion?
I will motion to forward a report to the city council recommending approval of a rezoning request for the assembled 2.824 acre property referred to as Olivet City Center Townhomes. The area and lots described within the petition application. Attachments from single family residential district to CC City Center District, and subject to the city council approving said rezoning, the commission approves the site plan illustrating and representing the preliminary development plan for the development of a 35-unit townhouse as illustrated and presented to the commission on March 17th, 2022, including civil plans prepared by Volz Inc., landscape plans prepared by Baxter Gardens, and architectural plans prepared by Core 10 Architecture, and a preliminary subdivision plat consolidating the 8 lots assembled in the 2.824 acre property referred to as Olivet Townhouses. All is noted in the memorandum from the Department of Planning and Community Development dated March 17th, 2022, subject to any staff conditions.
Motion's been made by Richard Brophy. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And seconded. Carlos, please call the vote.
Commissioner Spiegelglass,
Approved.
Commissioner Rosenberg,
Approved.
Commissioner Lewis,
Approved.
Commissioner Brophy,
Approved.
Commissioner Rich,
Approved.
Chairman Dragell.
Approved.
All right, the motion passes unanimously. The next step in this item will be to forward this as an agenda item to the city council, and that tentatively would be scheduled on Tuesday, April 12th. And then the city council would host a public hearing on the matter before acting on the petition, and that would be tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, April 26th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the next agenda item, which is, or actually, I think we're deferring this item. Is that correct?
That is correct. The 1220 North Price Road
Yeah.
was deferred, and some of it was just trying to coordinate the meeting to go out to the site. It was
Okay.
pretty tight to do it in 2 weeks.
Is this the, sorry, having it up there, that's still in play.
Yes, and we can go as a group. So that makes it a little bit more difficult in there to coordinate, but it is possible that more than just one.
Missy's bringing snacks. That's right.
Can we, is it,
But that would be a council thing. That I don't think that that's something to discuss, because I'm not sure your role is as a liaison. I'm not sure. The council may want to visit, but it's something I'd have to look at. No offense. I'll have to.
it would be nice if we can go there when it's supposed to be peak odors. Yes. So that would be, yeah, that would be my first question I ask is what, yeah, right. Right, right. Okay, so we're moving on to discussion items, and an item on the list is short-term rentals. Carlos, do you have a report for that?
No, we're gonna ask the commission to defer that item.
Good, good. So we'll move on to meeting minutes.
And we have no meeting minutes for review.
Okay, so now we're on to reports.
And reports, Chairman, I think it's important to note in the process of the rezoning for the city center townhomes, in there, the incorporation of the public comments and providing that opportunity for the public to be heard. And I think hopefully the council liaison will take that to the council. Several changes and revisions were incorporated based on what was heard from the residents. It wasn't everything, and that's not how the process should be. But I think they heard the concerns and were able at least to try to address and mediate as many of those issues. So do appreciate the commission taking the time and going through that process. Outside of that, on some of the development items, we were doing a footing inspection for the garage structure at Olive Crossing. So that is coming into play, and with the good weather now, that is going to move pretty quickly in there. And it's amazing how much concrete trucks are going throughout the community right now, and all sides in there. I also had an opportunity to do a framing inspection at the Oliver. And the units are pretty impressive. They're coming pretty close to final finishes on several of those units, especially on the northern side. It did give me the opportunity to kind of, again, take a look at what are the impacts of these setbacks, these heights in there. What are those views that concerns have been expressed? And I think, again, they appear to be at least addressed. Again, I wouldn't say that they're perfect, but the way the views are set, the distances, at least they're cognizant of some of those concerns that those residents have brought forward. And once that landscaping goes in too, that should mitigate a lot of the issues in there. That is correct. Across the street at Plant Haven, they're moving quick. I did have a discussion with Miss Sella, who operates the temporary outdoor garden center, to see if that was going to be an option this summer. And she's banking that they're hoping that they would be in by late summer at the facility, or trying to work to that. Still didn't have any tenants identified, but they're working hard to get a restaurant on that western end, and then more of an office user to kind of mitigate that parking in there in the middle, that they've had a lot of interest in that. So that sounds great. On some public projects, Stacy Park and a majority of the other parks throughout our community will be closed off to the public or limited to public access. Stacy Park and that parking lot, for anybody that utilizes Old Bonham School, that parking lot will be closed starting Monday. So the city's been active in trying to inform and get the school and the district set, because they've been using that parking lot for some of their offsite parking as their construction is going on.
So what are they going to do?
I'll let the liaison address that. And again, we've been trying to advocate.
And just from the personal, no, personal issue. What about the walking trails? Are those going to stay open?
Correct. I think there are some access areas that will continue.
For how long?
It all depends on the phases of construction.
So just watch the fencing. I saw the fencing going down.
Okay. Firestone's coming around really quickly. They're hoping to transfer or get the tenant in place or operating by early April. In there, they're pretty well on there now that, again, with the weather change, things are moving quick. And then up at the Opus Group, all the homes are down. It is an interesting view now when you go up there. Different perspective with the houses down, and and what you see. So that's
Trees down
pretty
there?
good. Yeah, they're starting to take some of those. I don't know if all of them are, but it's pretty wide open space. And then the community center off of Warson, we did some footing inspections there too. That in itself is going to start moving quickly. And I think their scheduled date for opening is next summer, correct? Correct. That's what they're working towards. So, outside of that, if there's any other questions, those are the updates I provide.
Missing?
Easy storage.
Yeah, easy storage.
Easy Storage, their schedule is to be applying for their building permit plans by August. Is what is it? I think that is the latest schedule set through their agreement with council.
So let me get back to Stacy Park. At this point in time, while we did give the Ladue School District ample notice and information with regard to the intent to close Stacy Park, I think they were a bit. Yeah. And so right now we are going to deal with a temporary portion of the parking lot on Stacy being open while we continue that dialogue, so that the school system can get used to the fact that that's what's going to happen. And the trails will remain open. And what will happen is on the backside of Stacy, is that's where you'll be able to walk in to get in and use the trails. So if you kind of like go to where Old Bonham Estates is, New Brock, right in there is where that gate will be opened to allow for that.
Southeast corner.
Yes, yeah. And that will remain up, hopefully remain open the whole time.
What's the schedule for it if everything goes good? Did I not hear that? How long is it supposed to
You
go?
know, I think, I have my notes at home, but I think realistically, when we had our council meeting the other week, I think the thought was the park improvements, not the community center, but the park improvements could all be done within a year. I don't know, but I think it would be best if we just close it and let the job get done. But I don't really know. I'm not there working it and figuring it out with the.
Missed my radar. I just saw the fence go up.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. Yeah. Other than that, it's the same old, same old. We got an election coming up here in a little bit. It is an uncontested one, but don't forget you're voting. It's important to vote. Appreciate everything that you do. I think tonight was an excellent night. It is, Mr. Trejo did indicate, you heard input from the citizens, potential impacts. You made those changes. You listened to staff and the recommendations of staff. And I think that's all good. Sitting here addressing your time and the ability to get things done and how we move forward. These are all good things because, as I said all along, y'all gonna be busy. It's all good busy. So with that, happy St. Patrick's Day. All the best.
And what was the? Four. All right, with that, Dawn, did you have anything? Anybody else have anything? Not, we'll close this meeting at 8:30.
You know what to do.